You know what's funny about humans? Drax asked, his 6 nostrils flaring with amusement as he polished the bar counter. They are so fragile-looking, like you could snap them in half. But they are actually the most terrifying species in the galaxy. I sipped my fermented algae drink, the bitter liquid burning my throat membranes. You are exaggerating again, Drax. Am I, Vila? Am I really? He leaned across the counter, all 4 of his eyes widening dramatically. Have you ever heard about Terran Exile J7742? The human who now calls himself Victor Drake. The name sent a chill through my spinal ridges. Of course I'd heard of Victor Drake. Everyone in the galactic hegemony had. But most believed he was just a myth, a scary story told to political dissidents. Drake is just propaganda, I said, though my voice wavered. It's a fabrication of the hegemony to keep us all in line. Drax laughed, a gurgling sound like someone drowning. Oh, honey, if only that were true. I met him once, you know, before he became what he is now. I nearly spat out my drink. You met the Victor Drake? The human who supposedly controls half the hegemony's trade routes. The man who allegedly has the High Council in his pocket. Come on. When Stan, before all that, when he was just J7742, a broken, angry human who'd been stripped of his Earth citizenship and dumped on this miserable outpost, Drax said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Let me tell you what really happened. I glanced around the dingy spaceport bar. It was mostly empty, save for a couple of Zolian merchants passed out in the corner booth and a nervous-looking Prill tapping at a datapad. Nobody was paying attention to us. Fine, I said, pushing my drink forward for a refill. But this better be worth my credits. Drax smiled, revealing 3 rows of jagged teeth. Oh, it will be. Because this story? It's about to become very relevant to everyone in the hegemony. Very soon. The human arrived on Outpost Omega-12 exactly 17 cycles ago. Back then I was just a struggling bar owner, not the respectable establishment you see today. Drax gestured around the grimy room with a hint of misplaced pride. The transport guards practically threw him into the street outside. He had nothing but the standard Exile pack, 3 days of rations, a translator, and a pathetic amount of universal credits. Not even a proper environmental suit, which is basically a death sentence on this moon. I nodded, having seen many exiles arrive over the years. Most didn't last a month. This human, though. Drax continued, he was different. Most exiles arrived broken, crying, begging, or in shock. This one arrived calculating. I watched him through the viewport. The first thing he did was stand up, dust himself off, scan his surroundings like he was memorizing everything. Then he smiled. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile that makes you check your locking mechanisms at night. So he came into your bar? I prompted. Not for 3 days. First, he went to the market district. With barely any credits, he managed to buy himself a proper breathing apparatus, warm clothing, and still had enough left for information. How? He found a Tauran gambling den and turned his few credits into a small fortune within hours. I frowned. Taurans don't lose at probability games. Their brains are practically quantum computers. Exactly. Drax slapped a tentacle on the counter. That's when I knew this human was something special. Later, I heard he didn't beat them at their games. He convinced 2 Tauran crime families that the other was cheating, started a brawl, and slipped away with unclaimed pot during the chaos. Smart, I admitted. Smart doesn't begin to cover it. By the time he walked into my establishment, he was already wearing better clothes than most citizens here, carried a modified Krell stunner nobody questioned how he acquired, and had 3 different species criminals looking to hire him. Drax poured himself a drink, something that smoked ominously. He sat right where you are sitting now, asked for a Terran whiskey, which was absurd. This place barely had clean drinking water back then. When I told him I had nothing from Earth, he just laughed, said, "That makes two of us," and ordered our strongest poison instead. What did he look like? I asked, trying to picture this mythical human, unremarkable by their standards, tall for a human but nothing special. Dark hair, eyes that changed color depending on the lighting, greenish, sometimes blue. A scar across his left eyebrow. But his most memorable feature wasn't physical. It was how he made you feel when he looked at you. It's like he was calculating your value, your weaknesses, and 14 different ways to use both. I shivered despite myself. And he told you his story? Just like that? No, Drax chuckled. He didn't have to. Everyone knew about the mass exile that cycle. The New Earth government had purged thousands of people they called dangerous elements. Political opponents, corporate rivals, brilliant minds who disagreed with the regime. They stripped them of citizenship and scattered them across the galaxy's worst outposts. But what made him special among thousands of exiles? His name, for starters. Before he was exiled J7742, he was Jackson Victor Drake, the architect of Earth's quantum communication network. The same network that gave Earth its edge in the hegemony. The man who made instant interstellar communication possible. I gasped. They exiled the person who created their most valuable technology? Politics, Drax said with disgust. The New Earth government claimed he was developing backdoors in the system, planning to sell secrets to alien interests. In complete fabrication, of course. Drake had simply backed the wrong political horse. Drax leaned in closer. But here's the beautiful irony. They forgot one crucial detail when they exiled the genius who built their communication network. What? I asked, completely engrossed now. He knew all its weaknesses, Drax whispered with gleeful menace. Every single one. Drake became a regular at my bar, Drax continued. Not because he enjoyed my company, though, who wouldn't? But because this place was a hub of information. Exiles, smugglers, mercenaries, corrupt hegemony officials looking for entertainment away from prying eyes. Everyone passed through eventually. And he was gathering intelligence, I guessed. Like a spider weaving a web, Drax agreed. For the first cycle, he just listened. Occasionally asked innocent questions, offered to help solve problems. Small things at first, fixing communication devices, upgrading security systems, optimizing ship navigation computers, always for a price. But a fair one. He built a reputation for competence. That's a long way from controlling an empire, I pointed out. Patience, Vila. Good stories can't be rushed, Drax admonished. By the second cycle, he had assembled a small crew, being a disgraced Neuroni scientist named Zara Plex, a Volth ex-military pilot called Corval, and a pair of Cynthian twins with a talent for slicing security systems. All outcasts, all brilliant, all nursing grudges against the powers that had discarded them. The Phantom Crew, I whispered. The infamous group was known throughout the hegemony, though few believed they actually existed. They didn't call themselves that back then, Drax said. They were just survivors, pooling their talents. Their first major operation was hijacking a small hegemony communication relay station at the edge of the system. That's suicide, I said. Hegemony security would vaporize anyone who tried. Not if you know exactly how the security systems work. Not if you helped design them. Drax tapped his tentacle against his temple. They took control of the station without firing a shot or triggering a single alarm. Then Drake did something brilliant. Instead of announcing what they'd done or making demands, they simply observed. For months, they monitored all communication passing through that relay. Information is power, I murmured. Precisely. They learned about shipping routes, security codes, classified research, political scandals, blackmail material, everything. And they started small. A redirected shipment here. A mysteriously failed security protocol there. Subtle manipulations that made them wealthy but kept them invisible. Drax refilled my drink without asking. By the third cycle, they controlled 3 relay stations and had amassed enough capital to purchase a decommissioned hegemony frigate. Drake renamed it the Reckoning. Appropriate, don't you think? I nodded, captivated despite my skepticism. Their breakthrough came during the Proxima Trade Summit 4 cycles ago. Every major corporation and government had representatives there, including Earth's newly appointed trade minister. Drake's crew intercepted communications revealing that Earth was planning to increase tariffs on quantum communication technology, the very technology Drake had pioneered, essentially holding the hegemony hostage for higher fees. So what did he do? He sent a single, untraceable message to every delegate except Earth's representatives. It contained proof that Earth's quantum network had critical vulnerabilities with detailed technical specifications and offered an alternative system at half the price. Chaos, I guessed. Beautiful chaos. Drax confirmed with relish. Earth's stock plummeted. The trade minister was recalled in disgrace. And suddenly, everyone was desperate to meet this mysterious provider of superior technology. Let me guess. The Shadow Consortium? The very same. Drake's new corporate identity, though nobody knew he was behind it. The consortium quickly secured contracts with 12 major worlds, building new communication networks that were faster, more secure, and, crucially, not controlled by Earth. And Earth couldn't stop them because officially Drake didn't exist anymore. He was just an exile designation in some forgotten database. The ultimate irony, in erasing his identity, they gave him perfect freedom to create a new one. Or in his case, several. I leaned back, processing this information. So the rumors about him controlling council members? Oh, that part's absolutely true, Drax said cheerfully. After establishing the Shadow Consortium, he created the Nexus Financial Group, which now holds the debt of 3 council species governments. Then came Helios Security, providing protection for 40% of hegemony shipping lanes, each company seemingly independent, each secretly reporting to Drake. But why? I asked. Simple revenge would have been exposing Earth's corruption or attacking their interests directly. Drax's expression grew serious, because revenge wasn't his only motivation. The night before he left Omega-12 for good, he sat right here, drinking that terrible swill I used to serve. He told me something I will never forget. He said, "The problem with Earth isn't that it's evil, Drax. It's that it's small-minded. They threw away their greatest minds because they feared what they couldn't control. I'm going to show them what real vision looks like." "And now?" I asked. "Now," Drax said, lowering his voice even further, "he's about to make his final move. Sources say he's returning to Omega-12 tomorrow. After 17 cycles, Victor Drake is coming back to where it all began." I nearly dropped my glass. Here? Why would he return to this backwater moon? Because, Drax said with a gleam in all 4 eyes, the entire Hegemony Council is arriving for emergency negotiations with Earth. Their ships will be passing through this sector. And Omega-12 is hosting a refueling stop. It's the first time in 50 cycles that all Council representatives and Earth's leadership will be in the same location. And you think Drake is planning something? I know he is. That's why I've been telling you this story, Vila. You see, I received a message this morning. The reservation for my finest private room tomorrow evening. The name on the reservation? Drax paused dramatically. J7742. My heart's pounded in my chest. What are you going to do? Me? I'm going to serve him our finest drinks and stay out of whatever happens next, Drax said pragmatically. But you, my curious journalist friend, you might want to be here. History is about to be made. How do you know I'm a journalist? I asked, suddenly alarmed. I'd been careful to hide my profession, especially since the hegemony had restricted press freedoms last cycle. Drax smiled that unsettling smile again. Let's just say a little bird told me. A little bird named Victor Drake. Your interview request was approved, by the way. Tomorrow evening, 8 standard hours. Don't be late. I stared at him, speechless. Oh, and Vila, he specifically requested you. Said something about appreciating your articles criticizing Earth's exile policy. Apparently, he's been a fan of your work for years. As I stumbled out of the bar into the artificial night of Omega-12, my mind raced with possibilities. The story of a lifetime had just fallen into my lap. But one question burned brighter than all others. What was Victor Drake planning for the Hegemony Council and the government that had exiled him? Whatever it was, I had a feeling the galaxy would never be the same after tomorrow. Omega-12 was barely recognizable the next day, but the normally quiet, dilapidated spaceport had transformed overnight. Hegemony security forces patrolled every corner. Sleek diplomatic vessels crowded the docking bays. Street vendors had tripled their prices, gleefully exploiting the influx of wealthy officials. I arrived at Drax's bar 2 hours early, my journalist instincts demanding I secure the best observation point. To my surprise, the establishment was closed to the public, a glowing sign declaring reserved for private function hovering above the entrance. When I pressed my press credentials against the scanner, the door slid open. Inside, the dingy bar had undergone a remarkable transformation. Clean surfaces, atmospheric lighting, and even some tasteful decorations had replaced the usual grime and neglect. What do you think? Drax emerged from the back room, wearing what appeared to be a formal serving uniform. Amazing what proper funding can accomplish, yes? Drake paid for all this? I asked, gesturing around. Let's just say my establishment received an extremely generous renovation budget on very short notice. Drax guided me toward a small table in the corner with an excellent view of the entire space, especially the private room entrance. Your designated spot, as requested by our mutual acquaintance. My recording devices and notepads were already arranged neatly on the table, equipment I'd left in my lodgings. How did you? I didn't, Drax interrupted. They were delivered this morning with instructions to place them here. Our friend likes to be thorough. A chill ran down my spinal column. Drake had access to my locked living quarters? Don't look so alarmed, Drax chuckled. If he wanted to harm you, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Now, can I get you something to calm your nerves? You look like you've seen a void specter. I ordered a mild stimulant drink and tried to organize my thoughts. The bar gradually filled with an eclectic mix of beings, not the usual riff-raff, but elegantly dressed individuals who carried themselves with authority. I recognized several prominent business leaders, a famous advocate for exile rights, and even a few minor hegemony officials. Quite the guest list, I murmured to Drax when he brought my drink. Just the preliminary attendees, he responded. The main guests haven't arrived yet. At precisely 8 standard hours, the main door slid open. A hush fell over the room as a group of 12 beings entered. I recognized them immediately. The Phantom crew, though they hardly resembled outlaws now. Dressed in immaculate attire that subtly incorporated matching design elements, they moved with coordinated precision. Leading them was a human male, Victor Drake. He looked nothing like I'd imagined and exactly as Drax had described. Of average height for his species, with dark hair streaked with silver at the temples. His eyes were indeed an indeterminate color between green and blue. The scar above his left eyebrow was thin but visible. He wore a simple but perfectly tailored black suit with no insignia or decorations. What struck me most was his expression, completely neutral, yet somehow radiating absolute confidence. He scanned the room once, nodded almost imperceptibly to Drax, then looked directly at me. A slight smile touched his lips as he approached my table. Mila Thorne, he said, his translator rendering his voice in perfect galactic standard. Your coverage of the Proxima border crisis was exceptional journalism. Thank you for coming. I tried to maintain my professional composure. Mr. Drake. Or do you prefer Victor? Or perhaps J7742? His smile widened slightly. Victor will do fine. May I? He gestured to the empty chair across from me. Of course, I said, activating my recording device. Though I'm curious why you granted this interview. You've avoided all media contact for years. Drake sat down with deliberate movements. The events are about to unfold that will reshape the hegemony. I want someone trustworthy to document them accurately. Your reporting has always valued truth over sensationalism. What events exactly? I asked. He checked his timepiece. The Hegemony Council and Earth's Chancellor Rovik will be arriving for their refueling stop in approximately 43 minutes. They've arranged an informal pre-negotiation dinner at the governor's residence. And what does that have to do with you? Everything, he replied simply. But we have time for your questions first. I imagine you have many. I did. For the next half hour, I conducted the most extraordinary interview of my career. Drake spoke candidly about his exile, his rise to power, and the network of companies he'd built. He confirmed much of what Drax had told me, adding details that made the story even more remarkable. Your corporations now effectively control major portions of the hegemony economy, I noted. Was that always your plan? My plan evolved, Drake replied. Initially, I simply wanted to survive, then to thrive, then to demonstrate the short-sightedness of those who discarded me and thousands of others. And now? What's your objective today? Drake's expression grew serious. Justice. Not just for me, but for everyone the system has failed. Through revenge? I asked. Through correction, he countered. The hegemony and Earth operate on a fundamentally flawed premise that power should belong to those who already have it. That stability matters more than fairness. I'm going to reset that premise. A subtle alert chimed from his communication device. Drake checked it and stood. They've arrived early. It's time. Time for what? I asked, following him as he moved toward the private room. Time for you to witness history, he said. Come. The private room contained a large circular table with 14 seats. Screens covered the walls, currently showing various views of Omega-12, including the governor's residence where a procession of important-looking vehicles was arriving. Everything is in position, she said. All systems reporting ready. Drake nodded. Proceed with Phase 1. She pressed a sequence on the device. Immediately the screens flickered, then stabilized to show interior views of the governor's residence. The Hegemony Council members, one representative from each of the 7 founding species, were being seated in an opulent dining room. At the head of their table sat a stern-looking human woman with silver hair pulled tightly back, Chancellor Rovik of Earth. How are you seeing this? I gasped. Those must be secured feeds. There's no such thing as a truly secured feed, Drake said. Not when you understand the fundamental architecture of the network. On screen, the dignitaries were exchanging polite greetings. Staff circulated with beverages. Watch carefully, Drake instructed, not just to me but to everyone in the room. 3, 2, 1. Simultaneously, every communication device in the dining room on screen, from the Chancellor's personal unit to the security guard's equipment, emitted a soft blue light. The dignitaries looked at their devices in confusion. What did you just do? I asked. Activated a dormant protocol in their communication network, Drake explained. One I embedded 17 years ago before my exile. It's now propagating throughout the hegemony's entire system. On the screens, the confusion in the dining room was growing. Security personnel were speaking urgently into their communicators. The Chancellor looked particularly alarmed. Are you attacking them? I asked, suddenly nervous about my proximity to what might be considered an act of terrorism. Drake looked offended. I don't attack. I transform. Watch. Every screen in the room suddenly displayed the same message in all major hegemony languages. Attention, all citizens of the galactic hegemony initiating system transparency protocol stand by for truth. Then the screens divided into hundreds of smaller windows, each showing different documents, video recordings, and data streams. It took me a moment to realize what I was seeing. Are those classified files? I whispered. Every secret communication, classified directive, and hidden agreement made by the Hegemony Council and Earth's government for the past 20 years, Drake confirmed, being broadcast simultaneously to every communication device in hegemony space. I stared in shock. You've just initiated the largest information leak in history. Correction is impossible without transparency, Drake said calmly. The people cannot hold their leaders accountable if they don't know what those leaders are doing. On the main screen, Chancellor Rovik was now shouting at her security team. The council members were frantically checking their devices. Look at them panic, Korval, the Volth pilot, remarked with satisfaction. They've spent decades lying to their own people, and now everyone knows. What exactly will people find in these files? I asked, my journalistic mind already racing through the implications. Evidence of the real reasons behind the Exile program, not public safety but political convenience. Proof that Earth has been secretly developing weapons prohibited by hegemony treaties. Documentation of council members accepting bribes to look the other way. Records of thousands of disappeared citizens across multiple worlds. Drake's voice remained steady, but his eyes had hardened. The complete, unvarnished truth. One of the Cynthian twins approached. These two ready on your command. Drake nodded. Execute. Another set of screens activated, showing banking interfaces. Numbers began shifting rapidly as financial transactions executed in blinding succession. What's happening now? I asked. The redistribution, Drake explained. Every credit stolen through corruption, every asset seized unjustly from exiles, every hidden fund, all of it being returned to the citizens it was taken from. That's impossible, I stammered. Difficult, not impossible, Drake corrected. We've spent years tracking these funds, creating the algorithms to identify rightful ownership, and building backdoors into the financial systems. Today, justice becomes automated. I watched in awe as incalculable wealth shifted across the galaxy in real time. On the other screens, footage showed public spaces across various worlds where citizens were gathering, staring at public displays showing the same revelations we were witnessing. They will try to stop this, I said. The hegemony has fail-safes, emergency protocols, which require communication networks to implement, Drake interrupted. Networks that now answer to me, not them. For the next 24 hours, they can do nothing but watch as their house of cards collapses. And after those 24 hours? Drake finally showed real emotion, a flash of fierce determination. After that, the hegemony will need to rebuild. But this time with actual representation, actual accountability, and without the capacity for secrecy that enabled their abuses. He turned to address his crew. Proceed with final phase. Zara activated another system. On the main screen, Chancellor Rovik's face suddenly went pale as her personal device projected a hologram, Victor Drake, standing exactly as he was in our room. Hello, Chancellor, Drake said, his words transmitted to the dining room. It's been a long time. Drake, she hissed. What have you done? What you taught me to do, he replied. Use every available advantage. The difference is, I'm using mine to help people, not control them. This is treason, she shouted. Terrorism. No, Drake said calmly. This is consequence. 17 years ago, you declared me an enemy of Earth because I opposed your ascension to power. You exiled me and thousands of others, thinking you were discarding threats. Instead, you created them. The council members were watching in stunned silence. Today isn't about revenge, Drake continued. It's about reset. The files being released contain evidence of crimes committed by everyone in that room. The financial transfers currently underway are returning what was stolen. And the system modifications I've implemented will prevent you from ever building the same corrupt structure again. He leaned closer to the projection. You didn't just exile me from Earth, Chancellor. You exiled me from humanity. So I built something better. A network that cannot be corrupted, a financial system that cannot be manipulated, and a form of governance that cannot operate in secret. You will be hunted for this, Rovik threatened. There's nowhere in the galaxy you can hide. Drake actually laughed. I'm not hiding. In fact, I'm extending an invitation to all of you. Experience what exile really means. Then decide if you want to be part of building something better. He terminated the connection. The room fell silent except for the soft beeping of equipment. What happens now? I asked quietly. Drake turned to me, his expression softening slightly. Now, history takes a new path. The information being released will trigger investigations, resignations, probably some revolutions. The financial redistribution will lift billions out of poverty. And the system changes will make true democracy possible for the first time in hegemony history. And your role in all this? I pressed. I have no desire to rule, he said simply. My companies will continue operating, but under transparent public oversight. As for me personally, he paused, looking thoughtful. I think I've earned a vacation, somewhere quiet. Perhaps Earth, now that my citizenship has been automatically reinstated as part of the system reset. I couldn't help but laugh at the audacity. You are going back to the planet that exiled you. Poetic, isn't it? His eyes twinkled with amusement. Besides, I hear the reconstruction committees will need experienced administrators. In the following hours, I witnessed the beginning of the hegemony's transformation. News of the information release spread faster than light across the galaxy. Public demonstrations erupted on dozens of worlds, not in violence but in celebration. Chancellor Rovik and 3 council members were placed under citizens' arrest by their own security forces once the evidence of their crimes became undeniable. When the initial chaos subsided, Drake granted me one final statement for my report. Exile taught me something valuable, he said, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him all evening. When you take everything from someone, their home, their identity, their place in society, you leave them with the most dangerous freedom of all. Nothing left to lose and everything to rebuild. Earth didn't banish me 17 years ago. They unleashed me. As Victor Drake and his crew prepared to depart Omega-12, I asked him one last question. Do you forgive them? Earth, the Chancellor, the system that discarded you? He considered this for a long moment before answering. Forgiveness isn't the point. Understanding is. They never understood that their power was always borrowed, never owned. Today they finally learned that lesson, and sometimes education is the best revenge. I watched their ship, the Reckoning, depart from Omega-12's main docking bay. The vessel's name seemed different now, less a threat of punishment and more a promise of balance restored. Drax joined me at the viewport, all 4 of his eyes blinking in contemplation. Quite a story you've got now, he remarked. The story of the century, I agreed. So what will your headline be? He asked. I thought about it, watching the Reckoning disappear into the stars, carrying the human who had just rewritten the rules of an empire. How about exiled from Earth? He returned humanity to the galaxy. Drax made his gurgling laugh. Perfect. He'd like that. As I prepared my report that night, updates continued to flood in from across hegemony space. New interim governments forming, corruption trials being organized, celebrations in the streets of worlds where hope had been scarce for generations. Victor Drake had indeed owned the empire that banished him, not to rule it, but to set it free. And in doing so, he had executed the most human revenge of all, creating something better than what had hurt him. They had exiled a man. He had returned a legend.